Since I've counted from the beginning. It's been a long time since I've counted.
Do you think you're opening the game of the grass? That's the game.
Well, after last time.
No. This. No.
And so it's with our prayer of community, with our prayer of sanctuary Matovo, that I want to welcome the extraordinary number of you who have braved the most beautiful of Melbourne Shabbat mornings to be here. It is, it's not often that this rabbi has the burden of so many of my colleagues where as the hour arrives I need to look across the room and count to see if we make minyan. I appreciate that many of my colleagues across the globe have to do that from time to time. Even in the city have to do that. But that's traditionally not something we struggle with here at TBI. We comfortably make minyan once, almost twice over at present. But I look down to the iPad which sits before me, and I see that there are more people currently joining us through the live streaming of our services on TBI TV than there are currently in the room. So I want to welcome you all and thank you for your participation in our song and in our celebration this morning. There is
count half of last night's for this morning.
There is good reason as to why we are so light this morning, because there is so very much happening in Melbourne and in our progressive community this Shabbat. If you didn't have the opportunity to join us last night, our synagogue was literally overflowing as we welcomed delegates to the UPJ biannual conference. This bima was at breaking point with so many of the wonderful, talented musicians from across our regional movement, all sharing in Kabbalat Shabbat. And if you weren't able to join us, it is something I suggest you do go to TBI TV. Believe it or not, we actually even have an on-demand function, because services should always be on demand. When you demand them, they are there. And share in last night's service, whether it be the one in the main sanctuary or our Hinenu service. This is another one of those Shabbatot where we have the ability in our wonderful community to celebrate 6 different services, whether it be our Emi Monash service, our Hinenu service, our Kabbalat Shabbat service, our Tot Shabbat service, which is currently running in the Friedlander, or this our main service, or if you really want to stay later this afternoon with Jeff and I to enjoy Mincha at 3:30 as we celebrate Mia Bintata becoming Bat Mitzvah. And on top of that, a very large congregation, including a good many of our regulars at the Novotel in St Kilda, celebrating the continuation of this Making Progress celebration of progressive Judaism biannual that is occurring. All of those things as explanation to say we're going to have an opportunity as a worship community to really enjoy ourselves this morning. To take the opportunity to invite participation from you who are with us each and every Shabbat, and really have a chance to linger in some parts of our worship which we don't ordinarily do. So please, as you always do, join in, follow along, and what's nice about this morning is if I do anything different and you're not sure why, stop me and ask. We've got time to have that conversation. We have, as I said, begun with our prayer of community, our prayer of sanctuary, Matovo. We turn forward to page 194 in our Siddurim, and continue with our prayers for health. First our physical well-being, and then our spiritual wholeness. Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatsa et adam b'chokhma, uvara vo nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei kiseh kvodecha, she'im yipatech echad mehem, או יסתר אחד מהם, אי אפשר להתקיים לעמוד לפניך. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות.
נשמה שנתת בי טהרה היא, אתה בראתה, אתה יצאת, אתה
God
b'chol yom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'tzidkenu v'havdin ben yom u'ben layla.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam marti asarim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokeh haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzarei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam anotein le'ayef koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir shnai me'anai v'numa me'afapai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben horim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozir Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam otei Yisrael b'tifarah.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'aseh kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen. Stay there. I'm going to get through some more. Be comfortable, relax. Harev Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratecha b'finu ufi amcha beit Yisrael v'nei anachnu v'tzetzaeinu v'tzetzaei amcha beit Yisrael kulan yodei shemecha v'lomdei Toratecha lishma Baruch atah Adonai hamelamed Torah la'amo Yisrael.
We continue on page 206. which enhance our world whilst building credit in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. And the study of Torah encompasses them all.
Tradition teaches that the study of Torah encompasses them all because it leads to them all, which is why we just do why we always do what we just did, is what I meant to say, which is busy ourselves, la'asok b'divrei Torah, in the words of Torah as part of our morning worship each and every day. You can breathe, I won't make you do anything else. Thank you very much, Josh. We're going to move forward from our Sukkah de Zimra, from our Brachot HaShachar to our Sukkah de Zimra, I should say, from our morning blessings to our verses of song and psalm, as we move to page 212 and continue with the words of Baruch She'amar.
Baruch Shema Behaya Haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Sei Bereshit, Baruch Omer Be'aseh, Baruch Gozer Mekayem, Baruch Merachem al Haaretz, Baruch Merachem al Habriot, Shalem Zachatav Lireav, Baruch Ha'elad, V'kayam Lanetzach, Baruch Bodeh U'Matzil, Baruch Shemo.
With songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mulal batishbachot. Page 214, Psalm 92. Mizmor Yom HaShabbat.
Mizmor Yom HaShabbat, tov levodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shikra elyon. Mizmor Yom HaShabbat, tov levodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shikra elyon. Le'agid b'boker chesdecha, ve'emunatcha b'leilot, alei asur aleina, ve'lalei higayon v'chinot. Mizmor le'yom HaShabbat, tov levodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shikra elyon. Ki simachtani Adonai b'poalecha, b'maaseh yadecha harnei. Mo'galu ma'aseh Adonai me'od al mekuvat shevotecha. Ish lo yeda, u'chesed lo yavin ezat. Mizmor Yom HaShabbat, tov levodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shikra elyon. Tzadik ata yifrach, eretz ha'lebanon, שתולים בבית אדוני, וחצות אלוהינו יפריחו עודנות ושרה. Ki
page 215, we'll continue with the Ashrei. Responsively puts a lot of pressure on you. We're going to be quiet every second verse. So you need to respond. That's what responsively means.
Ashrei Ashrei Beitecha, Od Yehalelu Chasema. Tehillah leDavid, Aromimcha Hai HaMelech, Abarecha Shimcha le'olam va'ed.
God, Gadol Adonai u'malvod, Gvulatecha ein cheker.
Dol Adonai Shabbat Ma'asecha, U'muretecha yagidu, Hadak emunotecha, U'divrei niflotecha asicha. Zecher avtucha yabiu, V'tzidkatcha yiranenu. Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Kevod malchutecha yomeru, v'rotecha yedaberu. Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador. הנה כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן לכם את אוכלם ביתו. צדיק הרע בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו. רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם. תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, יברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
Page 218.
Hallelujah.
forward to page 223 as we bring our Sukkah de Zimra to a close with the words of Yishtabach. Please join me in the Hebrew at the top of the page. Yishtabach Shimcha la'ad malkeinu, ha'el ha'melech ha'kadol v'ha'kodash, ha'bashamayim u'va'aretz, ki lacha na'eh Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Shirush bacha halel v'zimra, oz memshala netzach kudla gvura, tihila u'tiferet, kedusha u'malchot, brachot v'hodaot me'ata ve'ad olam. Baruch ata Adonai, melech gadol batishpachot, el ha'odaot adon ha'niflaot, ha'boche b'shirei zimra, melech elchei ha'olamim. We turn forward to page 224 and rise for the Chatzi Kaddish in advance of the call to prayer. We continue with the morning prayer, the Yotzeh Or on page 228. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, Yotzeh Or u'vorei choshech, oseh shalom u'vorei et hakol, ha'me'ir la'aretz l'darim maleha barachamim, u'v'tuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'rishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, malha ha'aretz kinyanecha, Tiparach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha va'al me'oreo she'asita yifa'alucha sela or chadash al Zion ta'ir v'nizkeh kulanu mehera le'oro Baruch ata Adonai yotzeh ha'me'orot. We turn forward to page 230 and continue with Ahava Rabbah, our prayer of love and thanksgiving. And so often in our services on a Shabbat morning, we find ourselves doing versions of this in either the Hebrew reading or the English interpretations. For a long time at this congregation, there was a focus on the center piece of the liturgy, beginning V'ha'er Ineinu, and over recent years we've kind of let that fall by the wayside. The melody not always doing exactly what we were looking to do with the liturgy. And Joel will recall in a previous time and place on the bottom part of this, don't worry Rhonda, I'm not going to be asking you to do it, relax. But on the bottom part of this page, as we head towards the Shema, the text that begins at the indentation, you can see that 2/3 of the way down the page, V'havienu l'shalom. There is a version of this set, of this bottom third of the liturgy set to Hatikva, to the melody of Israel's national anthem, which of itself is just a Bulgarian folk melody, but the liturgists looking to connect the themes of this liturgy of ingathering, of people coming together with the narrative of the creation and the sustenance of the state of Israel, the coming togethers of people. And so often a reminder of a melody can help us understand with deeper meaning where it is that we want to be going liturgically. All of that is a very extensive way of introducing the fact that I'm going to try and do the middle of the page if we can. Can we do the middle of the page? We can do the middle of the page, but let's get there together first and understand where it is that we're going. If you can join me in reading in English at the top of the page. How deeply you have loved us, eternal our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion, on account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life. Be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us, by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael, ba'ahava.
לציצית וריתם אותו, ואכלתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לעולמם. הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אמת. מה זה טוב לשכוח? Emet, there is no place where you are not. Even in the wilderness there is your word. Emet, that pen strokes of lightning, white fire, black flame stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred ways, true and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established, now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and rejoice with the words of Micha Mocha on the top of page 240. Taken to our feet for the Amidah, which begins on page 242. And as we worked our way through that final piece of liturgy, I will note that I noticed that our Tot Shabbat service has moved from the Friedlander into the courtyard. Our doors at the rear of our sanctuary are open, so when we move into our silent prayer, you might have the privilege of hearing children playing in shul, which is absolutely where they belong. And I say that to the parents outside that have been trying to tackle their children as they cross into the threshold. It's fine if they wander into shul. Again, worse things could happen. The Amidah on page 242. Kedushat Hayom, the sanctification of this day of Shabbat, the beautiful poetic reading on the base of 253. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victories, the realized hopes, the tasks accomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time. Contain the retreat of the hours and the days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only on this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into the quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat abide. Baruch atah Adonai, Kadesh HaShabbat. Expanding grandeur of creation. Worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imagination.
Modim anachnu lach.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim
anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements. Modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and our future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression. Modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared. Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. Modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach.
We pray that we may not live by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha b'cha ma'eh v'hodot. Blessed are you, Eternal One. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving, and we do so now with the singing of Sim Shalom.
Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha. Kein Chesed verachamim Aleinu, Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Barecheinu Avinu, kulanu kechad be'or panecha. Barecheinu Avinu, kulanu kechad be'or panecha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Ki ve'or panecha natat lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Torat chaim ve'ahavat chesed u'tzedakah u'veracha verachamim v'chaim v'shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Tova, Tova Uvracha. B'tov b'necha levarech et amo Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, טובה, טובה וברכה. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, טובה, טובה וברכה. Baruch atah Adonai, atah Adonai haborech et amo Yisrael. Shalom.
Pause for a few moments of Tefillat Halev. meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my God, my rock, and my Redeemer. For Seder Kriyat Torah Shabbat, the order of reading Shabbat on Torah on this Shabbat morning.
Adonai,
And as we are seated, I have the privilege of introducing our Torah portion as we continue our People's Way through, well, at the moment it seems to be my favorite book of Genesis, book of Torah, the book of Genesis, but I think that's possibly just because we're in it at the moment, and that may well change when we move forward. But we are well within our creation stories. The narrative I described a few weeks ago, perhaps a few months ago, as our dreaming. And I've been doing a lot of studying and learning these past few months about our nation's first peoples and their ways of telling stories. And I find so many correlations with ours. Yes, of course, ours is written and theirs is oral, but the nature and the power of story, as well as the importance of them, is so very, very common, particularly the focus on dreaming. And that is where we arrive in this week's Sidra, at dreaming, as our ancestors dream once more, and Jacob readies himself to wrestle. We don't actually have any of our beautiful stained glass windows that particularly focus on parashiot. They are themed as the first 7 days of creation, then the 3 pilgrimage festivals, and then some themed occasions. Obviously, the Hanukkah window stands out prominent to many, both because of its location and because it doesn't take a great Jewish knowledge to recognize it as the Hanukkah window. But the 3 windows alongside of it are, of course, the windows that reference Yom Kippur. The great many of you won't be able to see that. That's the giant blue gold whale. Looks like a goldfish. Actually a giant fish, it's not a whale, but that's Jonah's hands popping out. The more prominent one being the spirals of the shofar, the 4th window along, no matter which way you're counting, and has the doors wide open. That's the Rosh Hashanah window, the openings. The window that I can't see, some of you might be, Lexi, I think you got the best view of it, is the window that sits between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which has through it a spine that runs down through it, which is a ladder, and there are wings are flying and feathers everywhere. My friends, that's exactly where we are in Torah. We're just about to get there. We're right on the edge of that dreaming of when Jacob became Israel because he wrestled, and we are subsequently the people of Israel because we continue to wrestle. Perhaps not in the same way, certainly not in the same way, but please God, with the same intention, with the same kavanah. And those are the stories that we continue to grapple with as Jacob readies himself to see his brother once more and deal with the consequences of his earlier actions. We are in Parashat Vayetzi. We are at the final section of our triennial reading, so we'll be picking up in verse 31, in chapter 31 of Genesis, in verse 17, which can be found on page 210, 210 in the Plout Chumash, for those of you who want to follow along. Again, that's page 210, and we're picking up in verse 17, and Ruja and Rhonda will be our Torah readers for this morning. And it is my privilege to call to Torah for our first Aliyah, Tom Feister. And I'm struggling. Tzvi ben Shlomo B'Malka. Oh, I almost couldn't read the band. I got there. Tzvi. Yeah, Model Torah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai
בניו ואת נשיו על הגמלים. וינהג את כל מקנהו ואת כל רכושו אשר רכש מפני קניינו אשר רכש בפדן ארם לבוא אל יצחק אביו ארצה כנען. ולבן הלך לגזוז את צאנו ותגנוב רחל את הטרפים אשר לאביה. ויגנוב יעקב את לב לבן הארמי על בלי גידלו כי בורח הוא. ויברח הוא וכל אשר לו ויקום היעבור את הנהר וישם את פניו הגלעד.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. We should bear Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, may the Holy One who blessed our forefathers and foremothers bless you, Tom, in honor of Torah, in honor of Shabbat, in honor of community, in honor of family, in honor of wrestling, but most particularly in honor of us having the opportunity on a nice quiet Shabbat like this to appreciate the things that matter, which include, chief amongst them, the support of a community. When we listed the Elu Devarim, the attributes of the day, we listed that one should support their community, and your efforts, your presence, which is ever present, is something we don't take for granted, and we incredibly appreciate all that you do to make us the community that we are, the things that are seen as well as those things that are not seen. And we are so very, very grateful for them, and we hope that you are blessed with continued health so that you can continue to give in the way that you find so much meaning in. We ask that God bless you, that God bless all those that are dear to you, and we say together, Amen. Amen. The others being passed over. Thank you, Rusha, for that beautiful reading as we went through the end, or at least in writing, the end of the relationship between Jacob and his uncle before he moves on. As we move on, and so for our second aliyah this morning, I'd like to call to Torah Naomi bat Abraham v'Sarah. I'd like to invite Denise up to Torah. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natu Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
ויוגד ויעקב את doesn't cry. That's better. ויוגד ללבן ביום השלישי כי ברח יעקב ויקח את אחיו עמו וירדוף אחריו דרך 7 ימים וידבק אותו בהר הגלעד ויבוא אלוהים אל לבן הארמי בחלום הלילה ויאמר לו ישמע לך פן תדבר עם יעקב מטוב ועד רע.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chai olam natan bekotenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Umatenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel. May the Holy One bless our forefathers. God has also bless you, Denise, in honor of Torah, in honor of Shabbat, in honor of community, in honor of the rest and the delight that we get out of taking time to be with community, just to stop and enjoy Shabbat. But on this occasion, and I know it's been a few weeks now, but giving us, as your community, the opportunity to recognize what we hope has been the reduction of stress in your life as you complete a move and settle in and finish those last little few things that are required. But many of us who have done it before know that while the idea of moving is always so very exciting, the reality of it is always something so very different. And so we are glad that you have completed that process, that you and Ian are settled, and we wish you only happiness and joy in your new home. May God bless you. May God bless all those that are dear to you. And we say together, V'nomar, Amen. And so as we arrive at our third and final reading for this Shabbat morning, we take pause to recognize that while many things bring us to shul on Shabbat, one of those things is indeed the opportunity to remember and recall loved ones who are not able to be with us. And so for our third Aliyah, as is always the occasion here at Temple Beth Israel, we reserve it for those people who would like to come to Torah, not for themselves, but rather would like to come to Torah in memory of a loved one. Those people who are observing either Shiva, Shloshim, or a Yotzeit, or remembering the passing of a loved one at this time.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu ruhanim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ויעשה לבן את יעקב, ויעקב תקע את אחלו בהר ולבן תקע את אחיו בהר הגלעד. ויאמר לבן ליעקב מה עשית? ותגנוב את לבבי ותנהג את בנותיי כשבויות הרב. למה נחבאת לברוח ותגנוב אותי ולא הגדת לי ואשלחך בשמחה ובשירים בטוב ובחינוך ולא נטשתני לנשק לבניי ולבנותיי אתה פיסח Isachalta asor.
Amen. And to the four of you, we also say, Mishaberach Avotenu Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May the Holy One, who blessed our forefathers and foremothers, bless the four of you in honor of Torah, in honor of Shabbat, in honor of community, but most particularly in honor of the memory of those who you represent on this bimah at this time. Whether passing is recent or whether it has been in times gone by, it is occasions such as this, Yotzats, anniversaries, where we take pause to remember the lives we were blessed to share, the lessons that we were taught, the moments that we cherished. And our goal in inviting you to take these few steps up towards Torah is so that you focus on those things, the moments shared, the blessings shared, the moments cherished. And our hope is that as you go down from the bimah in just a few moments, that you are able to continue to focus on those things. Yes, it is true that you represent on this bimah right now loss. But what we want you also to represent, and what we want you to feel deep within your hearts, is love and life, and that which you are blessed to share. Because if you're able to focus on that, then as you step down from this bimah, as you go about the rest of your day and the week and year ahead, you'll be able to give honor to the memory of your loved ones by living life as they did on their very best days. And if you can do that, then we are guaranteed that their memory will truly be for a blessing. And that is our hope, that is our prayer. May God bless the work of your hands. May God bless all those that are dear to you, but may God, most particularly on this Shabbat, bless the memory of those who you represent on this bimah. And we say together in Abba, Amen. My friends, with Torah out in front of us, we're going to pause to take a moment to recognize that there are also many, in fact far too many in our community who are unwell at this time. And so I invite you to turn back to your prayer books to page 371, as we offer a prayer of healing, a Mishaberach Cholim for those who are unwell, as well as a prayer of strength for their caregivers at this time. Page 371. Anita Meany, Rachel Bat Esther, Sue Brown, Layla Cohen, Ella Klassen, Beverly Cohen, Margaret Cochran, Barry Fradkin, Adira Bat Rachel, Bella Magid, Rochelle Hines, Pinchas Ben Michal, Rebecca Moylan, Devorah Bachana, Mel Wright, Felicity Guthrie, Ian Samuel, Fega Zajcik, Alan Hall, Maureen Hall, Bet Pulva, and Grigory Machinovsky. If you have other names that you would like to add to this list of those who are unwell at this time who could benefit from a refuah shlema, a blessing of healing, I invite you to share their names as my eyes meet yours.
Kevin James.
Rory Saxon.
Me
turn back to page 370 as we rise to give honor to the Torah. Continue now with our Haftarah for Shabbat Vayetze. It comes to us from the prophet Hosea and can be found on page 344, although I do believe you'll be reading it for us in translation, or predominantly in translation.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be nice. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Preceded by the blessings by Peter.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר ברא בנביאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם ונרמיים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוקר בתורה ומשה עבדו וישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. אמן. Just going down to the end of chapter 13. Then Yaakov had to flee to the land of Aram. There Israel served for a wife. For a wife he had to guard sheep. But when the Lord brought Israel from Egypt, it was through a prophet. Through a prophet they were guarded. Ephraim gave bitter offense, and his Lord cast his crimes upon him and requited him for his mockery. When Ephraim spoke piety, he was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal, and so he died. And now they go on sinning. They have made them molten images, idols by their skill, from their silver, holy the work of craftsmen, yet for these they appoint men to sacrifice. They are wont to kiss calves. Surely they shall be like morning clouds, like dew so early gone, like chaff whirled away from the threshing floor, and like smoke from a lattice. Only I, the Lord, have been your God ever since the land of Egypt. You have never known a true God but me. You have never had a helper other than me. I looked after you in the desert, in a thirsty land, when they grazed and they were sated, when they were sated and they grew haughty, and so they forgot me. So I became like a lion to them. Like a leopard, I lurk on the way. Like a bear robbed of her young, I attacked them and rip open the casing of their hearts. I will devour them like a lion, and beasts of the field shall mangle them. You are undone, O Israel. You had no help but me. Where now is your king? Let him save you. Where are the chieftains of all your towns, whom you demand, give me a king and officers? I give you kings in my ire, and take them away in my wrath. Ephraim's guilt is bound up, his sin is stored away. Pangs of childbirth assail him, and the babe is not wise, for this is no time to survive at the birth stool of babes. From Sheol itself I will save them.
Redeem them from very death. Where, O death, are your plagues? Your pestilence, where, O Sheol? Vengeance shall be far from my thoughts. For though we flourish among reeds, a blast, a wind from the Lord shall come blowing up from the wilderness. His fountain shall be parched, his spring dried up. That wind shall plunder treasures, every lovely object. And just from verse 1 of chapter 14, Samaria shall bear her guilt, for she has defied her God. They shall fall by the sword. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zur kol haolamim, tzadik b'kol hadorot, ha'el ha'neman va'omeh v'aseh ha'medaber u'mekayem shabakol devarav emet v'tzedek al ha'torah ועל העבודה, ועל הנביאים, ועל יום השבת הזה. שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה, אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Thank you so much, Peter. We invite the Torah to rise and the congregation to rise with it as we offer blessings now for our congregation and for the people and the state of Israel. As I will speak to in a few moments' time, our brothers and sisters in Israel can certainly benefit from our blessings, both from a welfare perspective and from a moral perspective at the moment. There are some serious challenges facing the state of Israel right now. We begin first with the blessing for the people, for this country, and I invite Jeff Yadru back to come up for that one. Thank you. Jeff, you can come up too because you're offering a prayer for Israel. We'll begin first with Australia, though. There is a ticket.
For our country, let us bless our country, Australia, and all its people. Let us have dreams in this historic land of dreamers. Let the hot winds from the desert fire our imagination. Let the red soil of the plains keep us rooted to the things that matter. Let the waters of our rivers, lakes and oceans flow into our hearts, giving us depth and understanding. Help us remember those who have lived in this land before us and those who have made it their home in more recent times. Keep our eyes open to the beauty of this land. May we strive to keep its beauty present and strong. May we never be lazy in the work for peace. May we honor those who have died in the defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they lead with justice and compassion. Let us compassion be like the encompassing coastline of our continent. May acceptance, kindness, and peace live steadily within this ancient and enduring land. Amen.
Amen.
Shalom, Shalom, Yerushalayim. Yishlau Ohevei. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. Our Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Amen. We turn back to page 374 as we return the scroll to the ark. excuse me, I'm going to do likewise, because it's been that sort of week for me. But as I said in my opening remarks to our Torah service, we find ourselves deep within the book of Genesis, dealing with our ancestors and trying to somehow this year learn the lessons from their mistakes so we don't repeat them again. Ultimately, I believe that that's one of the fundamental reasons why we study Torah, why we spend time each year reading and reading and reading and repeating and repeating and repeating this sacred text, so we can benefit from our history, our heritage, but not be burdened with the necessity to repeat the mistakes of the past. And deep within this week's Sidra, or the series of parashiot that we're in, often the Torah comes to us in waves, like sets of waves that wash over us. And as we move through Jacob's story, which began, I suppose, with the actions that led to him and his mother deceptively taking the birthright away from his brother, and culminates next week with the reconciliation that occurs between him and his brother. There is a change. And right now, towards the end of our Shacharit Shabbat service, we arrive at it because this afternoon we begin to read next week's Sidra, and we get introduced to those themes. I alluded to our dreaming, but before he meets his brother, Jacob puts his head down on a rock. Probably not the best way to get a good night's sleep. And as a result, perhaps, of what he'd done through his life up until that moment, or perhaps because of the choice of location for his rest, he struggled to have a good night's sleep. And through that struggle, he was transformed. The text tells us he wrestled with an ish. But the description of that ish is different to any that we will read elsewhere in Torah. And so what and who he wrestled with is a good question. That's for other people's drashot. I can see our bat mitzvah next week thinking, I'm stepping all over what she's writing. I haven't seen what you've written, so I apologize in advance. I'm not going there, don't worry. I'm simply stopping at the point which says that the result of that struggle, that result of that wrestle, was a transformation of our patriarch. Yes, we talk about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but the reality is that Jacob became Israel, and we in turn became Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. Whether we see ourselves as the descendants of the tribes or the result of the mixed multitude that left Egypt about a book later in Torah, we are Bnei Israel, the children of the one who dreamt and struggled and wrestled. And throughout the centuries, across the world and across time, we have continued to do that in different ways, in different forms, and at different times. Our land has been known as Israel for 70 years. Yes, it's true, in antiquity it was also referred to as Israel, but only for the briefest time. Israel was the northern kingdom. It got conquered almost as quickly as it got created. The kingdom that lasted was the kingdom of Judah, together with the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, centered in Hebron and in Jerusalem. So why, when our ancestors, not so old ancestors, why when our Zionist forefathers and foremothers set to recreate the modern state of Israel, did they choose to pick Israel as its name? There were, as many of you know well, no shortage of other options, good options, and options that may well have been far more popular chief amongst them, Judah, as the true continuation of the Second Commonwealth. The religious Zionists loved the idea. The Third Commonwealth, around the modern nation of Judah, the Jewish homeland. But Ben-Gurion and others said no. In the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, they said very clearly that they chose to call the modern state Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, because they understood acutely that it was going to be a state of struggle. A state where there was Yisrael, struggle with God, and Yisra'ish, struggle with man. And that struggle was going to shape and define it over the centuries. And right now, literally this Shabbat, Israel is experiencing that struggle once more. Often you hear me talk about the difference between the existential threats that face the state of Israel. Existential threat is a euphemism for Iran. It's not so existential in the world in which we live. The existential threats that face Israel, as well as the very real threats that face it within the fabric of its society. And so before I focus on the 400 plus rockets that Israel's neighbours in Gaza sent over this past week, I want to talk about the election in Jerusalem. It was a runoff election, the secondary election for the mayor of Jerusalem. I wouldn't have voted for the guy that won. That won't surprise anyone when you see his politics or his approach to religious tolerance and wanting Jerusalem to be the capital for not all religions, but all peoples and all Jews particularly. But what was most interesting is that ultimately, after they counted all the votes and all the votes and all the votes, and I loved reading in the article that they had to wait to count the votes from prison. They had to wait for the prison votes to come in before they could finally declare the election. It was that close. And what that speaks to me about is the fact that when an election like that is so tight, decided by a few hundred voices, that we know that there is a tension inside of Israel, not just outside of Israel. That there is a real debate, a wrestle going on within the state as to what they want the fabric of that state to be. And it's something that we should be aware of because, my friends, even if we push ourselves to read widely and listen broadly, it's very, very hard on the other side of the world to hear these textured, differentiated voices. But an election decided by a few votes that came out of the imprisoned population of Jerusalemites tells us that city once again sits on a precipice. Yehuda Amichai, the poet laureate of Israel, described Jerusalem as being a city built upon a suppressed screen. Powerful metaphor, that notion of a suppressed scream. What is a suppressed scream? I found myself asking in my Israeli literature class of my professor, Bill Cutter. And I asked Rabbi Cutter, what is a suppressed scream? And he said, okay, Gersh, I want you to get yourself ready from your toes. Get yourself ready like you're going to scream louder than you've ever screamed before, and just when it hits the top of your throat, stop. He said, that's a suppressed scream. Not suppressed by someone muffling your mouth, but you stopping it yourself because you know that if it comes out of your mouth, it will rupture and break and destroy. So if Jerusalem's scream was truly uttered, it would go up into heavens and would once again become Jerusalem Shamala. But if that scream didn't exist, if you didn't have the passion that began in your toes and rose through your entire body, just be another city. So we live on that tension. It is at the heart of our struggle. But Jerusalem's not the only struggle, and the future of that city and what it looks like and whose it is not Israel's only challenge right now. Because those rockets fired in by Hamas opened up a conflict which had been kept silent for some months now. And that is an absolute difference of opinion in Israel's government. When we offered the prayer for the state of Israel, we read within it, Jeff read for us, a state which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. And yet this week we see that this Shabbat, we see that with Israel's defense minister Avigdor Lieberman resigning on the eve of Shabbat, and we see with Israel's industry and trade minister Naftali Bennett also resigning because he's not being given the defense ministry, that Israel's government is most likely going to fall because it no longer has an absolute majority. The right of Israel's politics is as split as the nation itself. What is the current discord? What is the current disagreement? Whether we should continue with a ceasefire. In my adult life, I've never heard the leadership of Israel debate the pros and cons of ceasefire. I've only ever heard them speak for it, ask for it, and advocate for it. To talk about the application of military force in controlled ways. But the population is tired. Over 400 rockets in 2 days can do that. And we on the other side of the world need to be really careful about how we judge them because they're not coming into our homes. But it is clear that almost half of the coalition government that rules Israel right now feels that they need to make clearer, that their sovereignty is not in question, and they will not allow the safety and security of their people to be challenged by Hamas. Who's disagreeing with them? Well, it's actually the leadership of the military. The generals are saying no. They're saying we can't send our girls and boys back into Gaza because that existential threat the rabbi in Australia always talks about, well, they're waiting on the northern border. And as soon as we send our armies across the southern border, Iran's going to come in through Syria in the north. That's what they're waiting for. And so we have to show restraint. What a difficult situation to be in. Where you feel so threatened, so compromised and so insecure that you're prepared to send your children to war. While your generals say, we cannot fight this war because we need to be ready for the next. That, my friends, is what it means to struggle. And it's a struggle we are blessed to not have to face in this country. But it's a struggle we really need to understand because it goes to the heart of what the people and the state of Israel are currently facing. They are trying their hardest to define what they want their moral and social and religious future to be. But each time they put time, effort and energy into that debate, they are forced to put it on hold and to focus instead on the very real existential realities. I don't think Jacob ever understood the twofold blessing of having his name changed by that Ish, by that angel. We, all these generations later, are becoming to understand it acutely. Will we learn the lessons of the past? Will we be given the opportunity to learn the lessons of the past? I don't know. But what we need to do right now is to take our desensitized selves and turn them back on and engage them once more with our nation state, because it is truly at risk from within and beyond. Not a lot to say Shabbat Shalom about, but enough to let us focus this Shabbat. And so I wish you Shalom, peace. We turn forward to page 586 for our Aleinu. Please rise. Standing as we turn our thoughts to those who are no longer with us, and we turn towards page 598 for Kaddish Yatom, for the mourners Kaddish. But in advance of that, we turn our thoughts to those in our community who we have lost and who we are remembering this Shabbat. We think first of those whose passing has occurred in the last 7 days and whose Shiva we are still observing. We think of Kolya Atichas Donahu Andarakis. We think of Alexander Vayner, and with regret we announce the passing of Jeffrey Green, who will be laid to rest this coming Monday. On this Shabbat we also recognize the Shloshim, the anniversary of the passing of Irene Arapol, Olga Bartak, Catherine Deli, Matilda Flack, Zofia Fleischer, Max Mand, Claire Morris, Anna Paul, Judy Rosenfeld, David Ross, Naum Volkov. We also continue to recognize the Shloshim, the first 30 days of those men and women who lost their life in the massacre at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. We think of Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stern, Melvin Wax, and Irvin Younger. We also turn our thoughts to all of those who have lost their lives to acts of violence and terror throughout the city and across the globe in recent weeks. On this Shabbat, we also recognize the Yotzites, the anniversaries of the passing of Benjamin Aarons, Norman Cohen, Percy Cohen, Ian Dorey, Jack Gould, Alfred Hartman, Gerda Hack, Chloe Howard, Zara Joseph, Ray Lieberman, Franz Lipman, Beryl Phillips, Barry Rubin, Roy Sharp, Francis Slonim, Bernard Sylvan, and Rosine Bertha Voss. If you have other names of remembrance that you would like to add, or if I inadvertently mispronounced any of these names, I invite you to correct me as my eyes meet yours. We think of those named as well as those whose names lie deep within our hearts, as well as those who don't have anyone to remember them, as we offer the words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabba, v'amad yivrach yimutei v'yamlich mochotei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'cheidecho Beit Yisrael, magalav izman kariv v'imru, yehei shemei rabba m'vorach l'olam almayim hayah, יפרח וישתבח ופעה ויתרומן ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו ואלה מן כל בריחתה ושירתה ותשבחתה ונחמתה תאמינן בעמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו. May the one who creates harmony and light bring peace to us, to all who mourn, and to that we say, Amen. Please be seated. Rebecca, do we have some announcements?
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you for inspiring us once again to turn our thoughts to the complicated situation in the state of Israel. And thank you, Rhonda and Joel, for your liturgy this morning. And welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see all our shul regulars here. And welcome to any visitors. Welcome to our visitor from Canada. Welcome to you if you're here for the UPJ conference. Everyone else is down the road at the Novotel at the UPJ conference. And welcome to those who are here in memory of a loved one. Just a couple of announcements. Tomorrow is Mitzvah Day. And it's not too late to just come along and volunteer for some of the Mitzvah Day activities. There are things here happening at TBI in the morning, but there's mainly a need for volunteers to help with the trip to the Melbourne Museum with refugee families. So do perhaps talk to Joanne if you're interested in joining that group. So that's Sunday tomorrow. Next Sunday for our members is our TBI annual general meeting, where we will celebrate the year that we've had and tell you about what's happening in the year to come. 10 o'clock here next Sunday. In the afternoon there is a performance of Handel's Solomon performed by the Melbourne Chamber Choir here next Sunday. And one other date for you, Wednesday the 28th of November, we're hosting an information evening about the remarkable William Cooper. I hope most of you know the story of William Cooper, the Aboriginal activist.
I'm happy to tell it again.
Talk to Rabbi Lazaro. He's the Aboriginal activist who spent his life fighting for justice for oppressed groups, including our people, including the Jews in Hitler's Germany. So this talk on Wednesday the 28th will be a forerunner to the Walking Together March on the 6th of December. And there is a website, walkingtogether.org.au. Thank you to our laners, Ruja and Rhonda. Thank you.
I'm just saying,
you're looking for the flyer.
There's a whole poster
Here we are.
with a map and everything.
There it is.
In the foyer, and I'd love you to take them because, the whole idea of this started here last Yom Kippur in a reflection I shared with the congregation, and it looks like the rest of the community's got on board, but I'd love TBI to have a very strong presence there.
It's a very important story, so do please take information and join us for that. After our final song, we're going to have Kiddush in the courtyard, which should be beautiful out there. And as usual, do please thank our security volunteers on your way out and pop your books on the trolley. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Our final song is?
Ein Eloheinu. an oldie but a goodie, page 626.
Shabbat Shalom. Please join us in the courtyard for Kiddush.